It's not enough to talk about it. If talk could resolve this issue, it would have been resolved. We have to do more than talk. Everybody has a role to play. I'm going to do my best. I just celebrated my 25th birthday for the third time. And I'm devoting my life to achieving justice for the enslaved people. I'd like to call your attention to the statement from President Joe Biden. This is on page 2. President Biden is a courageous man. Regardless as to what you think about his politics, no other president issued such a statement. Not one. So that includes any that you may be thinking of. Not one. Took courage to do this. I'm not going to say it's going to cost him an election, but there are some people in this country who will see this as a very negative thing. If you turn the page, we will at some point get to this ceremony, and I plan to do it as quickly as possible, and that's when we'll deal with a great degree of solemnity. But then over on page 12, we talk about the observance date and the resolution that we have in Congress. The House of Representatives passed the resolution. The Honorable Steny Hoyer was a person who helped to promote this resolution and get it through the House. I will always remember him and be grateful to him. And I will always tell you the truth. The Senate did not pass the resolution. The Senate and the House were in control of persons from my party. And we did not pass that resolution in the Senate. I think posterity will not be kind to the Senate. Next, we have this conscience agenda. The conscience agenda relates to things that are important because they relate to the lack of respect that my ancestors and all the scions, all of our ancestors have had in this country, a lack of respect. You see, in this country, we revere the enslavers and revile the enslaved. For many years, people of African ancestry did not want to be associated with the enslaved. We thought they were worthless. These were the people who fed the country. The economic success of the United States of America resides to this day on their backs because they gave this country a pretty good head start with centuries of free labor, cheap labor. So we want to make sure we get this Slavery Remembrance resolution through the Congress. And then, in 1956, the Congress of the United States of America, in its infinite wisdom, decided to award a Congressional Gold Medal to Confederate soldiers. We revere the enslavers and revile the enslaved. A Congressional Gold Medal to the enslavers. It is my belief that if the Congress of the United States of America can get the president to sign legislation according a Congressional Gold Medal to Confederate soldiers who were enslavers and traitors, then the Congress of the United States of America ought to be able to pass legislation to present what has been earned to those who are enslaved. That's why we have this legislation to award a Congressional Gold Medal to the enslaved. That's what this country can do as a part of its atonement. But that's not enough, because what happened with the enslavement metamorphosed into convict leasing, and then we had black codes, and we had invidious discrimination that was lawfully segregation, and we still have invidious discrimination to this day. And we have to complete the atonement process not only by dealing with those who were enslaved, but there's some contemporary things that have to be done. And one of these things has to do with the Richard Russell Office Building. The Richard Russell Office Building is a Senate office building. The Richard Russell Office Building honors Richard Russell. Dear friends, Richard Russell was a self-proclaimed white supremacist. He fought anti-lynching legislation. He opposed the civil rights legislation that eventually passed. He was a co-author of the Southern Manifesto. No building paid for with tax dollars ought to bear the name of Richard Russell. And my dear friends, the Senate could change that tomorrow. The Senate of the United States of America is a place of shame. It is shameful that these senators will not take Richard Russell's name off of the building. We have a bill, resolution calling for it. But I want you to know that it's not difficult for them to do. They would only have to have the will to do it. They say they can't do it because they can't agree on a new name. I solved that problem. Pardon me for using the personal pronoun, but I have. I have said let it revert to the name that it had before it became the Russell Senate Office Building, which was the old Senate Office Building. Then take as much time as you need. Ad infinitum. And give it a proper name. And by the way, I haven't said name it the King Office Building or the Malcolm X Office Building. None of that. I have no name in the game. I have simply said, you can do this. And allow the people who go there who are African ancestry to have some dignity. I refuse to go into the Senate Russell Office Building. Accept a protest. I refuse. I will not dehumanize myself. I'm not going to deny myself the dignity my parents accorded me. The Richard Russell Office Building ought to be banned. I won't go back unless I'm there to protest. And by the way, there's a rotunda there with his name, not only with his name, but a statue of Richard Russell. We need to get his name off the building. Now, there are a couple of resolutions that are important. The 25th Army Corps, I'll tell you quickly, this deals with Juneteenth. My friends, General Gordon Granger, what he did in 1865 was a wonderful thing to come to Galveston, Texas and read General Order No. 3. It was a great thing to do. But before General Gordon Granger came, the 25th Army Corps arrived. And it was the 25th Army Corps, 1,000 strong, that liberated the Africans before the arrival of General Gordon Granger. The 25th Army Corps consisted of formerly enslaved people who were part of the Union Army. 1,000 of them, it is said. So we've got to give credit where the credit belongs. Yes, General Gordon Granger did a great thing to read General Order No. 3, but those people who were liberated appreciated the 25th Army Corps. and the 25th Army Corps should be recognized. This is why we're asking for them to be recognized by the Congress of the United States of America. Too often, the true history of what happened with Black Americans and their liberation is denied them. They have been denied their rightful place in history, and we want to restore that. Or actually, to give them their proper place, because it's never been given to them. And of course, we have a resolution for Nat Turner. Nat Turner has been thought of as a crazy, out of his mind, insane person. But Nat Turner was a revolutionary. Nat Turner was a freedom fighter, as was the case with John Brown. Freedom fighters. They were trying to liberate enslaved people, and they all deserve to be honored. The Congress of the United States of America has all of this legislation before it. I can't tell you what the Congress will do, but I will tell you what you can do. You can do what others do when they want me to vote for things. You can talk to people. You can talk. There's a role for everybody. It's here. It's time for Congress to act. It's time for Congress to do the things that can make a difference. Finally, there's one more thing that Congress can do. We have legislation that would require the insurance companies and the banks that dealt with the enslavement of people. The banks would make loans for a person to buy other people just as they might buy cattle. And the insurance companies would would insure these persons who were enslaved. We have legislation that would require these insurance companies and these banks to first examine their records by way of a third party, independent third party. Let us know the depth of involvement, and thereafter develop an atonement plan. They've all acknowledged that they've been involved. Now we need to have them do what Georgetown is doing, and that is engage in atonement. There has to be some recompense. So now, friends, having gone through this, I'd like to take you to the part of the ceremony that I consider to be of great importance and involves a great deal of solemnity. So this is not a time for any applause. It's a time for reflection. It is a time for us to give proper respect and remembrance to the millions of people whose lives were sacrificed to make America great. I would ask that you please join me, if you can, by standing, and if you would, to show your heartfelt sorrow for the millions who suffered the indignation and humiliation and horrors of slavery. If you would, place your hand over your heart. Those who would like to and who can, I ask you to do so now. And as you're standing, I will remind you that over the next few minutes, we will recall various well-documented aspects of the experiences of America. And I think all of us, that they were not slaves, they were enslaved. And there will be an amendment to the book. And at the end of each of these that we will summarize, I will say the words "we must." And I ask that you immediately say, "Always remember." And we will say it in unison. Let us have just a moment to rehearse. When I say we must, you will say, "Always remember." All right? Let's begin. To prevent the evils of slavery from being repeated, we must always remember. To commemorate the suffering and the lives lost because of slavery, we must always remember. For the first 20 enslaved Africans who arrived in the British colonies at Point Comfort near what is now Norfolk, Virginia, on August 20th of 1619, we must always remember. For the 12 million humans from all walks of life, whose lives were stolen from them when they were kidnapped from Africa, we must always remember. For the Africans sold into slavery by other Africans, we must always remember. For the 12% of human beings who suffered the deadly Middle Passage and did not survive the horrific voyage to America, we must always remember. For the men, women, and children on slave ships, many of whom kept naked, packed close together, with many shackled and chained, we must always remember. For the enslaved human beings who often worked from sunup to after sundown 6 to 7 days a week, often without food, we must always remember. For the mothers and fathers who were separated from their children and sold on the auction blocks, we must always remember. For the freedom fighters such as Nat Turner, who fought to free enslaved people, who gave their lives in the fight for freedom and justice, we must always remember. For the tens of thousands of enslaved persons who risked their lives in search of freedom on the Underground Railroad, we must always remember. For freedom fighters such as Harriet Tubman, who escaped slavery and dedicated her life to return to the South no less than 13 times, freeing enslaved men, women, and children, we must always remember. For the white liberators like John Brown and President Abraham Lincoln, who lived and died combating the horrific institution of slavery, we must always remember. To commemorate the centuries of suffering, the years and tears shed, the history of hearts broken, the brutality of blood spilled, and the grieving over lives lost because of slavery, we must always remember. Yet in the spirit of righteous remembrance, imbued with love for our country that hasn't always loved its brothers and sisters of African ancestry, we have to acknowledge that in spite of slavery, and despite its invidious offsprings, mass lynchings, convict leasing, black codes, lawful segregation, and institutional racism, African Americans have come a laudably long way. From our arrival on slave ships to our ascension to judgeships, from surviving the Middle Passage to thriving among the masses, from shackled and chained to creating societal change, from sitting in the back of the bus to owning bus companies, from having no house to living in the White House, from painfully picking cotton to proudly picking presidents, from adult males and females being disrespectfully called boy and girl to being respectfully presented as Mr. President and Madam Vice President. The truth be told, although we have come a long way, we still have a way to go. In closing, let us resolve that as we forge forward, we will commemorate our past and embrace our destiny, always remembering the hardships people of African heritage have endured, in tandem with the victories won, in spite of the seemingly invincible challenges emanating from insidious slavery and its invidious progenies. Through it all, we must always remember. We must always remember. We must always remember. Thank you. Would you please claim your seats while I give one final word? This is a ceremony an observance that I would ask that next year, on August the 20th, or someday near August 20th, we do it on August 20th, or the Sunday before or after in Houston, Texas, that you would, in your home, or your place of worship, if you so choose, or some other location, have a similar ceremony. It doesn't have to be this ceremony, but a similar ceremony, such that we will always remember those whose lives were sacrificed, such that every person who is in this country is having many of the opportunities that we have today. Slavery Remembrance is about more than just remembering. It is also about proper atonement. And I pledge to you that I will dedicate my life, the remainder, whatever is left for me, remainder of time, to getting this done. And there's a role for you to play as well. We must. Thank you, everybody.
Give it up one more time for the Congressman. So we're approaching the end of our Slavery Remembrance Day, but before we move, last and but not least final part is the empowerment story. I would like to introduce Raheem. Raheem is a Washington, D.C. native, community organizer centered around racial justice and prison abolition. Founder of the Radical Education and Abolition League, known as Real Frontline DC, where he began his activism work in 2020, organizing some of the first protests in the Justice for George Floyd and Breonna Taylor movement. Please give it up for Raheem.
Good evening. I want to say thank you to the GU 272 community, always advocating for slavery accountability, the Black Student Alliance, and everybody involved in the event today. Thank you all for having me. My name is Raheem. As if you look at the program, I don't have a last name right there because if you all didn't know, Black people, enslaved people did not use last names up until about the 1870 census, so I just go by Raheem in honor of my ancestors. I got involved in activism in 2020 during the George Floyd and Breonna Taylor protest. I'm still here fighting today. When I first started out, I did not have a plan. I just went out there, I was like, come on, I know what I don't like about the world, so let's make a change. Even Martin Luther King, he had a dream, but he's killed him before he got to get to that plan part. So I definitely want to empower you all to always just look into that dream, look into that vision that you have for freedom, and let that drive you. You don't have to have it all figured out. I don't have it all figured out. I didn't even know I'd be here speaking today. I got invited by the students of HASA. Thank you all again. So right now, we are currently fighting for the Detention Compensation Act. 53% of the people in DC jail are being held pre-trial. A lot of those people do get released and never are convicted. So I am coming from a cloth that does not glorify war criminals or people who were a part of the 1994 crime bill, such as Joe Biden. So I want to sit up here and say straight up, when remembering slavery, remember that you don't always have to have a plan. Just let that dream and that vision drive you. Remember that slavery is still legal according to the 13th Amendment for those who are convicted of a crime. Remember that as long as you have a dream and a vision, you let that drive you for your fight. Thank you.
So, what a night. Please give it up for all of our speakers and performers for tonight. Before I get into the thank yous and conclusions and wrapping it up, first I want to give a brief, PSA announcement. What is I will call it a Black celebration without food? So each of you guys receive a ticket when you enter. It's like brown, blue, or purple. After the ceremony is done, please go down to the second floor, take these steps, and you'll be able to get a good soul food dinner from Love Place and Black Business Owner. If we do ask that right after the program, that we let our brown ticket holders go first, that's the first 2 rows, and then we'll proceed to go on from there. But it's been a journey. We have been planning this event since June. We've met every single week since June, and for the past couple of weeks, it hasn't been a week, it's been the same day, every single day. But it's been the honor of a lifetime, and I appreciate my team for giving me this opportunity and following me through this journey. Speaking of my team, I would like to introduce them come up so you can give them their applause. First, we have Kesley. Logistics coordinator. Next, we have Ariel Benjamin as our graphic coordinator. And last but not least, we have Julia Thomas as our speaker coordinator. The work that I have put these women into, it's been a lot. Like, it's been 2 a.m. calls, it's been Zoom sessions, like, I'm back home in Georgia, we on Zoom for 2 hours, like, it's been a lot. But I really, really appreciate you guys. And I'm kind of sad that, our work for this event is done for this year, but I'm very much guaranteed that it will not be the last time we work together. I would also like to thank a couple of departments. I would like to thank clubs such as the Black Student Alliance, the Black Leadership Forum, Georgetown University Student Association, Georgetown University Student Celebration, and a specific organization that isn't university recognized because they're like, universities do this stuff. Hoyas Advocating for Slavery Accountability. While I do know that Georgetown University as a whole, we thank the administration, has done a lot compared to other universities when it comes to reconciling with slavery, I would not be doing myself, nor descendants, nor students at Georgetown University any due diligence, but they're not doing enough. Every single day, we should be fighting for more because everything that the enslaved people got taken away from them, their lives, their children, their love, just the decency of life, has been taken away. So Georgetown will never stop honoring those who were enslaved. Specifically speaking, the Slavery Remembrance Day Committee, plus PASA and the other organizations joined, calls for Georgetown University to advocate for university-sponsored, not alumni-sponsored, reparations, memorialization, and the creation of sustainable flows of campus resources for descendants. We also ask to honor the enslaved families and the descendants through direct action, including education initiatives, memorialization, and reparative justice initiatives. Do more, Georgetown. We know you can. We know you got it. Do it. We also ask that for students who do come to Georgetown with what some may call a legacy admission, we ask that if you get these students here, make sure they're okay here. We also ask that Georgetown University respect and treat the Black students on campus regardless of that. Just because you have 272 descendants in 1838, you have more than 200 more years of descendants that have walked up campus who have felt unsafe, not felt like they belonged here, and you as a Georgetown University administration, do better, do right, and protect those who continue day in and day out to work hard to bring this university out. But with that being said, I would like to thank all of you guys for being here. It has been truly the honor of a lifetime. Specifically, thanking some of my friends who have been here, Billy, my roommate Matt, just shout out. Also, I'm a person, just like us, we're like a family, so I would like to really give a special shout out to my family who flew here from Atlanta, Georgia. Thank you, and the one thing I want to let you guys leave here to today is think about where you are, think about where you're standing. If I think back, and I was a person who was blessed to meet 4 or 5 of my great-grandparents, I even got to meet a great-great-grandparent. Just think even farther than that, those of you who are descendants who grandparents were enslaved. Think where we are. We're at a very prestigious university. We're people who get the opportunity to come here, and not only are we picking kind, like the Congressman said, we're able to pick presidents, we're able to become a president one day, we're able to make change, we're able to make America, not what it was trying to be at the beginning, but make it even better than that. So I challenge you guys to take some time to really remember where you come from, reach out to family, and really understand that your life can take any obstacle that they want to, but you will get back up just like we have for generations to come. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for coming. Enjoy your food and have a nice day.